So I am about to do a broadcast with the Rutgers business leadership team. So I'm gonna track that, just kind of let you guys hear, what a day in life is for me. And this is something I love to do because I get to give back to the community, give back to the school that I graduated from. So here we go.
Mr. Alston, you mentioned that you look for challenges, and I was curious to see right now, what would you say is the most challenging part about being either in the HR department or in real estate?
I would say the challenge is coming more from the real estate end. I think what I've learned is like HR is HR. So as long as you continue to learn your skill set, there's really not many different obstacles you're gonna see, but you are dealing with different personalities. That's kind of what makes HR challenging in itself. Is it's not the actual work, but it's the different personalities you have to manage. That's always the challenge there, and you just kind of get used to kind of navigating that. I would say the real estate is probably where I'm getting the most challenge because you have to do a lot of different things at the same time. So you're raising money for capital, for investments. You have to manage the property if you're not big enough to have a property manager. But then you also have to do tenants and leases and address issues. That's just the investment side of it. And I'm also a realtor too, so that's a whole nother game where I have to focus on marketing, branding myself, setting up meetings, working with clients, cold calling. So it's challenging because you have to balance everything. I do have one person on my team right now, which is like helpful for me. He does a lot for me, manages a lot of the admin stuff on the back end for me, which for both businesses, which is great. And my goal is to expand with more agents and grow. But with that, I would say lead generation. Like, there's only so many houses you can sell in a year, and having to repeat that year over year over year, you have to have a very strong sphere. You have to have a very strong setup and platform that generates those leads. So that's, I think, one of the most challenging things is marketing well enough to continue to build leads in your pipeline.
And do you think that COVID has made it any more difficult than it would have been before, just being in real estate?
I think COVID has made it a lot easier for people that are investors that aren't over leveraged. And what I mean by that is there's some people out there, investors that might have bought properties that didn't make sense or might have overspent on a home, and they got hit with COVID, and it's affecting them. So when I look at a real estate deal as an investor, I'm looking at worst case scenario. I have a vacancy. I have something that happens. How much does my rent cover? Does it cover my mortgage, my expenses, and give me cash flow? And I will only buy deals that hit all those boxes. Where at some point, sometime investors might just buy a bunch of stuff, and then we call that over leverage. It's not the deals aren't now funding back their business. So I think COVID has made it harder for investors that weren't like smart investors, I would say. But on the flip side, from an agent perspective, COVID's made it great. I mean, everybody doesn't want to now. Everybody's working from home pretty much, so people are like moving out of the city, leaving smaller places and getting homes. So I've seen an increase in the buyer side, which is interesting. I've also seen an increase in the seller side. With the seller side, the issue and that I was talking to a client last night that I'm working to try to get his listing. He's concerned about being able to actually find a property after he sells. So he's going to sell it for, say, 20, 30 grand over what it's worth. But then he's going to have to go and try to find a property where he's going to probably have to then bid and spend that right away. So he's in the line like, does it even make sense for me to sell? So it's a very interesting time for us in real estate, both on the investor side and realtor side. But I said the realtor side is probably a little bit more challenging because inventory is lighter because of exactly what I just said. Like, sellers are making a lot of money, and then they're having to either lease a place or try to find a fixer-upper because they can't now take that money they made and go buy something new because they're going to overpay for it, and they don't want to do that. So I think it's been an interesting dynamic to see.
Or even not even be available. That's why right now I'm in a condo. I made my money on the house, and now I'm like, okay, well, find something. But yes, so now I'm building. It's a crazy market.
Yeah. So exactly, that's a good point.